Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to take you on adventures to the Great White North, across Canada, from Vancouver up into the Canadian Rockies and back home to Iowa. That's 2,300 miles or 3,700 kilometers for those of you outside the US. Now let me tell you, this video has something for everyone. We have beautiful Canadian vistas. We have lots of geeky EV stats. We have CCS charging with various degrees of success. We have a broken windshield. We have a flat tire. There's always tips and tricks along the way. And to top that off, there was a fair amount of range anxiety. So grab your popcorn, come along for the ride. So we made it here to Whistler. We're at the hotel, and it turns out we have free charging here at the hotel. I have the 1772 connector plugged into the car, and as it turns out, it is a full 40 amps. So we're going to be able to completely skip the supercharger here in Whistler and leave the hotel tomorrow with a full tank of electrons, which is super cool. Hello everyone, bright and early, too early frankly. We have a long day of driving ahead of us today. We are going from Whistler, British Columbia to Jasper, Alberta, Canada. We're going to be camping tonight, so it's looking like right now it's saying we're going to get there 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't think I believe it, but we'll see what happens. It's mountains. We'll check in along the way, but right now we were able to charge at the hotel. We're up to 100%, kicked it up to 100% right when we got up this morning, and so we're going to leave with a full tank of electrons and just see what happens as we get down the road. Check-in from the road. We're about halfway to our supercharger stop, and we've been on the road for over 2 hours now. We have about 2 hours left to go. It's unusual to go 4 hours between stops, but here we are in the mountains. Our efficiency has been really good, and coupled with the fact that in Canada you drive slower than in the US, and in the mountains of Canada you drive even slower. We started out this journey saying that we were going to get to our destination with 42%, and we're currently tracking about 42%. So far the car has been predicting well. Now, something that we're going to have to figure out at our next stop is that a better route planner says that we need to take a much longer route through supercharger network to get to where we want to go in Jasper. The car is telling us, nah, just cut cross country, you'll be fine. Get the Jasper at 10%. So far I'm willing to trust the car. Also, there are a couple of BC Hydro CCS chargers. They're only 50 kilowatt, but they're 50 kilowatt. If we need them along the way, if things aren't tracking. There's a couple of those on that road, so it's likely we're going to take that route. We'll make that call when we get to our next supercharger stop. All right, we made it to Kamloops, British Columbia. It is a V3 supercharger. There's 12 stalls here. Only one other Tesla here at the moment. Getting plugged in, and we're going to be here for a little while. So let's chart our progress, but before we do that, let me show you what we did for efficiency on this leg of the run. Said we were going to arrive with 42%. We actually got here with 38%, and since the last charge, we went 301 kilometers and used 135 watt hours per kilometer. All right, let's take a look at what our strategy here is. Now, if I were to let the trip computer do what it needed to do, it would want to route us through this direction and all the way over to the Banff area and then up to Jasper, which is going to add a significant amount of time. There is a more direct route, and if you plug this into Google, if you have a gas car, it's going to tell you to take this route up to Jasper, but there's no superchargers along this route. There are a couple of CCS chargers. They are only 50 kilowatt. There's one here in Blue River and another one up here that we actually plugged in as destination points. Car doesn't know that they're chargers. So when I plug this in, it's actually having us go up here. There's Jasper. It wants to go down to Golden. I don't know what it's doing. So we're going to go ahead and say remove all charge stops. And it should kind of straighten this out a little bit. And here it's got our 2 charge points stops here. And then it says right now, Jasper, get there at minus 41%. We're sitting here at 57%. Which means we pretty much need to get 100% if we don't want to use these 2 stops. And that's probably what we're going to do. We're going to charge up to 100% and make it so these CCS stops are just backup stops. We're all charged up to 100%, and it's saying we're going to get to Jasper with 0%. But we have 3 CCS chargers and even some level 2 chargers to back up to give us a little more juice along the way. First time I've been in this situation, but I think we're going to be okay. We have 3 options to get it done. Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think we're going to be fine. Well, we're trying to go slower than the speed limit here, which isn't that much slower in kilometers versus miles. But right now we're kind of teetering between 0 and we're at 2%. Now it says 1%. So we're going to try and take it slow with the premise that none of these 3 charging stops will work for us. I'm pretty certain at least one of them will. Not all that comfortable using CCS chargers. I guess I'm spoiled with the Tesla supercharger, but we're going to see if we can kind of keep this above 0 for the entire journey. That will give us a little bit of breathing room just in case. We're about halfway to Jasper. It's raining, at least it was. We stopped at our first BC Hydro CCS charger, and let me tell you, this was not seamless. First off, this CCS connector, if you've never used it and you have a Tesla, it's enormous. And jockeying between the app and the screen and the plug and making sure that it's in the car and it doesn't seat very well. Had to do this 3 or 4 times, and I finally got it to all kind of click. And right now we are charging at 46 kilowatts. What does that mean? Well, it means that we're gonna make it to Jasper without a problem, because right now it's saying we're gonna get to Jasper with nothing. And so we're gonna have to sit here for probably a little while and make sure that we have enough buffer to get us to Jasper. And we have 2 other options. If something happens on this and it doesn't go as planned, we have 2 more stops that we could give it a try. So here's hoping. Okay, we are charged up enough. It is now telling us we're going to get to the Jasper supercharger with 20% instead of 0, which is much better. So this session of charging on CCS through BC Hydro was a rocky start, but once it got going, it's been rock solid, stuck at 46 kilowatts. Not super fast, but when you're in the pinch and you got no other choices, it all works. Make sure you have that CCS adapter. I did have a guy in a Tesla pull up, Model 3, came up to me while I was trying to get mine working. I hadn't got it working yet, saying, how do you make this work? And I said, you have to have one of these CCS adapters. He goes, I don't have one of those. I'm like, oh man, what's this guy gonna do? We are literally in kind of the middle of nowhere, Canada, with regard to superchargers. So if he doesn't have enough charge, he's gonna be in trouble. So hopefully he figured it out, found a level 2 or something, or has plenty of range. He can get to where he needs to go, but he didn't stick around long. He took off. So we're gonna get unplugged and we're gonna check in probably from the road, most likely when we get to the Jasper supercharger. So see you then. Also, when you're doing a CCS, make sure that you stop the charging manually from the car before you unplug. We're gonna unlock the charge port, and now we should be able to unplug. Make sure you take the adapter off the end. Don't forget your adapter. Right, we made it to Jasper, our cross country. Not sure if we're gonna make it there in time. Turns out it was okay thanks to BC Hydro's CCS charger. We got here with 27%. When we left the CCS charger, it says we were getting here with 20, so efficiency was better than normal. If we hadn't charged, in retrospect, we probably would have been fine, but it was better not to cut it that close. This last leg, since the CCS charger, was 215 kilometers, 153 watt hours per kilometer. So we're gonna get plugged in and we're gonna get some dinner before heading to the campsite. I have to admit that most views from superchargers don't look like this. Hi everyone, it's been a night since I checked in last and we did some camping in Jasper, and that was a fantastic experience where we were set up. We are back at the Jasper supercharger here. We have a bit of a leg to go. It doesn't seem like it's that far, but it's further than you think. We're actually plugging in with 86%. We have a little business to do here in town, and we're just gonna wanna get as topped off as we can, even though our charge rate right now is really, really slow. Let's take a look at what the plan is for today. So we're up here in Jasper, and we're gonna end up making our way down. We're gonna visit some ice fields, and then we're gonna make our way all the way down to our next camping site, which is down here in Banff. And if you turn on the superchargers, there is a supercharger here if we need to get to it, but it is a bit of a journey. So we're just going to get topped off. We don't know how much back and forth we're going to be doing while we're in here, so just want to make sure we have plenty of charge. Right now we have all our stops plugged in. It is saying we're going to get to the campsite at 25%. We do have power. We're supposed to have power at the campsite, so we should be fine. Had a 1450 hookup, plenty of juice for the night. Not sure what we're gonna have, if we're gonna have the same 1450 or if we're gonna have just a TT30 hookup. It will make a difference on how much we're able to charge, but really that's where we need to go today. everyone, just another check-in to kind of show you what our next couple of days are going to look like. We are currently just outside of Banff. We're going to be leaving Banff today. We did a lot of camping in this area. I'll have a separate video on that, check that out. But from here, we're just going to get to Calgary, which isn't that far, and we were able to have a 30 amp 240 volt 1450 service at all the campgrounds, which is really nice because we were able to leave all of our campsites every morning with more than 90%. So we are going to be able to get to Calgary with ample charge and about 60%, which means we don't need to charge anywhere near Calgary. And then from there, we are making the trek across Canada and back home. And the next night, we're going to end up in Minot. So let me show you what that looks like. Here's what we got going. We're sitting here outside of Banff. We're actually going to be heading back into Banff, and then we've got to get to Calgary, and you can see there's no superchargers in Calgary. From there, we make our way across Alberta and then through Saskatchewan, and then we're going to make our next night stop in Minot, North Dakota. Now, this is going to be an interesting leg because in Minot, there are no superchargers. There's some CCS chargers that we're gonna need, and it says you could just barely make it if you fully charge here in Canada and go all the way down here to Bismarck. We're probably going to, from an insurance policy point of view, do that full charge just in case. When we get to Minot, there are a few CCS chargers. None of them are very fast, and don't know how reliable they're going to be, but we're going to try that out and get as much charge as we can there before heading down here. So out of this whole next leg, this particular section is going to be the most interesting, similar to what we did when we came up to the Jasper area. So that's what we got going, and we'll check in from the road. Completed our trip out of Banff, headed east, and we are now at the hotel in Calgary. As it turns out, it's got a charger, at least it's supposed to have a charger. We're checking in right now, not quite sure if the chargers are available, but if we are, that is going to be great, and we'll probably be able to bypass a stop for tomorrow. This last leg, since we charged at the campground, 196 kilometers and 126 watt hours per kilometer. Not all that up to speed on watt hours per kilometer yet, but compared to the overall trip, it was significantly lower. So when I do the math and I show on the screen here, it's actually probably going to end up being pretty good. So we're going to get checked into the hotel here and see if we can figure out if we've got charging, and if we do, we'll take advantage of that, and if not, we've got plenty of charge to make it to the next supercharger down the road, because tomorrow is a big road trip day. We are going to be going about 700 miles, or about 13 hours, across Canada and ending in Minot, North Dakota, or at least that's the plan. Well, it looks like we are in luck. We do have a charger here. It's similar to the one that we had in Whistler, so it's probably high voltage, and with our handy dandy J1772 connector, we're going to get plugged in. We've got a full 10 kilowatts of charging here, 48 amps at 205 volts. So we're going to be fully juiced up with electrons in the morning. We have our limit set at 90% because we don't want to let it sit overnight, but when we wake up in the morning, we'll bump that up to 100 and see what we can get before hitting the road. We'll check in with you in the morning. Good morning, everyone. It is the next day. We're ready to hit the road. We woke up with 90% charge. As soon as we woke up, I kicked it up to 100. We're sitting at 99%. Turned on the climate controls, get everything preheated, preconditioned, so we should have maximum efficiency. And we're ready for our long drive to Minot, North Dakota, to go back to the United States. So let's hit the road. touchdown for our first stop of the day in Medicine Hat, Alberta, Canada. That leg, 295 kilometers, 153 watt hours per kilometer. We are plugged in. It says we got about 12 minutes before we can continue our trip. And our next stop is going to be Swift Current, Saskatchewan, which is 2 hours and 10 minutes away. So we're gonna sit here and charge for a bit, and then we will get down the road. All charged up. It says we're gonna get to our destination with 23%, which is more than enough. Oftentimes when you're at a supercharger, car is waiting on you more than you're waiting on the car. So we're gonna get unplugged and get down the road. Right, we landed at our next stop in Swift Current, Saskatchewan. This last trip, 223 kilometers, 167 watt hours per kilometer, which is a little higher than our overall average, but not bad. We're gonna get plugged in here. We got about, it says about 15 minutes, enough time to use the restroom, make a quick lunch, and then we'll be on our way to Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. So we'll check in then. Arrived at Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan. We got here with 47% because we overcharged the last stop because we were eating lunch, which is no big deal. But we did 172 kilometers and 153 watt hours per kilometer, which is lower than average, probably because we had a little bit of a hefty backwind. We're going to get plugged in and should only be here about 15 minutes. Made it to our next stop. We are in Estevan, Saskatchewan, which is just above the U.S. border. Our next stop will be the U.S. border. Here's the trick. We're stopping for the night in Minot, which is about halfway down the total height of North Dakota, and there is no supercharger between here and the southern part of North Dakota, which is Bismarck. And there is some CCS charging, and it seems to be kind of flaky in Minot, so we're banking on the fact that at least trying to play into the idea that we won't be able to charge, worst case scenario, kind of like we did when we were going up to Jasper. So it's going to have us sit here. We're having it plug into the supercharger that our next place to go would be Bismarck, so we're going to have us sit here for about 45 to 50 minutes in order for us to get enough charge for us to have it get us to Bismarck with a relative low charge. But so we're gonna sit here, we're gonna eat some dinner, and we're just gonna let this charge up, and we'll check in a little bit to kind of see where we're at and how things are looking. Oh, this last leg was 246 kilometers, 152 watt hours per kilometer. So let's get plugged in. All right, quick check-in. We are currently sitting here at 94%. and you will see that right now, if we left right now, we'd be getting to Bismarck with minus 8%, which tells me that even if we charge to 100%, we're not going to be able to get all the way to Bismarck. So we are definitely going to have to charge somewhere along this route. Well, I guess we'll just see when we get there. We're gonna unplug at 100% and get down the road. But the next stop is probably going to be the US border. So we just got underway leaving Estevan Supercharger, and if you remember what I just showed you, that we are not going to make it to Bismarck with -3. Well, oftentimes lately with this version of software is that once you leave the supercharger, it will often recalculate, and lately it's been conservative when we're plugged in. So when we unplug and get on the road, it ends up giving us a little bit of energy back, and that's exactly what's happening now. So instead of -3% at Bismarck, it's now saying we're going to be there with +3%. Still too close for my liking, so we're still going to charge, or at least attempt to charge, but that's just kind of what happens. So strategy for this leg is to stick to the speed limit. Going slower gets you further, so we're going to stick with the speed limit, which is what the range is figuring you're going to do, and hope for the best. We are back in the USA, made it through customs, had to stick in the commercial line because the regular non-commercial line was closed. It was 8 o'clock at night. Crossed over in Portal. When you get back in the US, make sure you switch everything back over to miles instead of kilometers. So now all your distances seem a lot shorter than they really are. North Dakota, slow down. Hi everyone, made it to Minot, and because of a lot of road construction, the speed limit was greatly reduced, and we got here with better charge than expected. It actually says if we want to travel on to Bismarck, we get there with about 10%. That's still cutting it too close for me because things change, and we're going to be spending the night overnight, and we're going to have a cold battery in the morning, so it's not likely going to work out. But follow PlugShare, and there is a CCS charger here in Minot at a car dealership, and we're going to check it out and see if we can make this thing actually work. I should have said that this last leg was 120 miles. Yes, miles. We are back in the United States, and our watt hours per mile was 237, which is hugely low, but it's probably because we were driving 45 miles an hour for about 50 miles. So that helps a lot. So we're going to get plugged in and see if we can make this thing work. Fingers crossed that we can. All right, we are charging. You can see that it seems to be working. We had to connect to the EV Connect app by scanning this QR code, and once we did that, it said that we were good to go and it was going to be free. It's just a matter of taking the CCS cable, plugging in our adapter, and letting the app do its thing. And I have to admit that it worked first try, and we are charging. And we are getting 46 kilowatts, which is fantastic given that there is no supercharger. So we're gonna sit here until it says that we can get to Bismarck with probably 25 to 30% just to give us some cushion, which will probably take us, I'm guessing, 20 minutes or so. As we're sitting here charging, my producer to the right of me wanted me to mention that Minot doesn't have a supercharger, but it's been slated to have one for a while. There was actually a permit pulled last November, and we were really, when we were planning this trip, and we were really hoping that by the time the summer got here, that supercharger would be installed and ready to go, so we wouldn't have to deal with any of this mess. But for whatever reason, it's not here. And I will tell you, this is a prime location for a supercharger if you want to make it from north-south through North Dakota, because there is nothing between basically Canada and the southern part of North Dakota with Bismarck. So Tesla, if you're watching, and you're probably not, get this thing going. Okay, we've been sitting here about 20 minutes or so, and it is saying that we can get to the hotel and the thing we want to do tomorrow and to Bismarck with 31%. So we're going to pick this up in the morning. We will shut off Sentry mode so we preserve our battery overnight, and hopefully tomorrow morning we'll go as planned. Good morning, everyone. Heading out of Minot. Got to the hotel with 79%, turned off Sentry mode, and woke up this morning with 79%. The battery's a little colder. Said that we were going to reach Bismarck, our next supercharger location, last night with about 33%. Now it's projecting about 29%. So a little bit of adjustment. It is 57 degrees Fahrenheit outside, so that is factoring it in a little bit. That's why I wanted to give ourselves a little bit of cushion. I've been bit by that in the past, but the CCS charging went relatively smoothly last night, so we're able to get through the dead zone of middle North Dakota, and we'll check in with you when we get to Bismarck, North Dakota. Welcome to the supercharger in Bismarck, North Dakota. It was a straight shot south of Minot. Remember when we said that I was going to get here with 29%, and we actually got here with 31%. This last leg, 116 miles, 273 watt hours per mile. Most of that was driven at 75 miles an hour. So that's actually pretty good efficiency for this car. So we're plugged in here. It says we got about 25 minutes. Let's take a look at what our journey is going to be for the rest of the trip. Here's what we got going today. We started up here in Minot, and we are now in Bismarck, and our goal for today is to get to Minneapolis. So it's going to be a little bit shorter day than yesterday, around 550 miles total. It's saying that we're going to get to our location where we're going to end the day at a little after 5 o'clock tonight, which won't be too bad. Okay, change of plans. Went ahead and plugged in this Jamestown supercharger as an option in our trip, and it does look like it's going to save us some time. Oftentimes, the Tesla favors longer charges and fewer stops, and sometimes that gets you to your destination slower. So by adding the Jamestown stop, we're only here for a few more minutes. 1 minute actually, is according to what it says here, and then we will get to our destination in Minneapolis much sooner. It says about 45 minutes sooner. So that's what we're going to do. And because there's no food or anything here, we're just going to get to where we need to go here and then get on down the road. Jamestown, North Dakota, 103 miles, 295 watt hours per mile. Higher than our average, but we were doing much higher speeds on the North Dakota interstate system. So we're gonna get plugged in, be here about, 15 minutes, and then we'll be on our way. Arrived with 16%, which was about, when we left last time, it was recommending that we get here with about 22%, so we lost some, because I think it was thinking we were normally driving a long distance at lower speeds, and now that we kick things up to higher speeds, I'm pretty sure the estimates are going to be a little more accurate from here moving forward. So getting plugged in. It's the first time in a supercharger I've seen this. plastic backing on the back side of the supercharger. We're in North Dakota, and North Dakota is known for its winds. So the only thing I can think of is that they put these plastic barriers on the back side of the superchargers in order to keep these from blowing off. If you have another idea of why they might be there, let me know. Getting ready to leave the supercharger, and I have a problem. I got a low pressure indicator, and sure enough, I have a staple in my driver's side rear tire that I'm gonna have to deal with. I'm gonna have to pull out the plug kit and get that plugged up. So we're gonna be here for a little while longer. After about a, 30, 45 minute delay, we plugged the tire. Fortunately, I had a tire plug kit and a portable air compressor. And doing that on a gravelly kind of surface, with the pressure of it being 4th of July and nothing being open, it was a project and some blood was drawn. But we got it plugged, and turns out my portable USB-C air compressor just didn't have enough in it to fill the tire, because I've used it a couple of times between charges, so we had to find a gas station nearby. Got up to about 20% or 20 psi, and then we went and found a gas station to fill it up to 42, and it appears to be holding. And I was planning on getting new tires anyway. 50,000 miles on this set of tires is pretty good, but just got to get us home, and so far it seems to be doing that job. And if there was some wood to knock on, I'd be knocking on it. So if you'd like to know what it takes to plug a tire in a Tesla, follow the link in the video right above here. I have another video that covers that in detail. Also has links to, I'll put links in the description below to the tire plug kit and the air compressor that I use. They both worked out really, really well. So, back on the road. Just got to Fargo, North Dakota supercharger. It is a V3. Tire seems to be holding up well. This last leg, 92 miles, 260 watt hours per mile, which it's pretty good for 75 miles an hour. Says we're going to be here for 15 minutes, and then we'll be on our way to Alexandria, Minnesota. So we just sit tight and we'll check in at the next stop. I should also mention that probably the last time I was in Fargo, North Dakota was over a decade ago, where I ran my very first marathon here. It was a great experience. If you ever have a chance to run a marathon in Fargo, highly recommend it. They have live music every single mile of the race. Really cool. Into the supercharger in Alexandria, Minnesota, on our way to Minneapolis. This leg, 109 miles, 279 watt hours per mile. Again, pretty good. We're about a mile away, and once we get there, we'll just get plugged in, and we're going to be here for about 15 minutes. Should be arriving with about 23 to 22% state of charge. We're at a Target, this supercharger. There are also some level 2 charge point chargers as well. We ended up spending a little extra time in the Target, because that's what happens when you go to Target. So we can skip our next stop, and our next stop now is going to be our final destination for the night. So our next supercharger won't be until the morning, and it'll be in Bloomington, Minnesota, and we will check in with you there to show you what the details were on that last leg of the drive, because it's going to be about 120, 140 miles, depending on how much we tool around in Minneapolis. So good night for now. We'll check in the morning. Good morning, everyone. First stop of the day, Bloomington, Minnesota, on our last leg home. This last leg from where we stopped the last time was 140 miles, 242 watt hours per mile. So overall, things are looking good. We're going to be here for a little while because I'm going to meet up with a couple of other YouTubers and Twitter friends. So we may be here a little bit longer than we need to be, but we'll check in when we get back on the road. Right now, we're plugging in. Left the Bloomington, Minnesota supercharger overcharged 96%. Met up with my friend Brian Reeby. He's also got a YouTube channel, Brian Reeby Drives Electric. If you aren't familiar with Brian, go check him out. I'll leave a link in the description below. But good catching up with him and his daughter Joan. So I charged for a little bit longer than I needed to while we were chatting. We charged up to 96%, but now we are on the road. Hi everyone, we have just arrived at Albert Lea, Minnesota supercharger. We have come full circle on this very long trip, and this happens to be the first supercharger and probably the last supercharger that we're going to have. We did roll in with a pretty high state of charge, 62%, but it's saying that if we stay here for 15 minutes, we have to eat lunch anyway, that we can skip the next supercharger and make it the 183 miles home, about 3 hours. So we're gonna get plugged in and we're gonna get some lunch, and probably the next time you'll see me is when I'm sitting in my garage and giving you a summary of how things went. Made it home, and with that, our big road trip has come to an end. Let's talk about that last leg real quick. 185 miles, 250 watt hours per mile, which is actually really good for this car. This car for the last 2 years has historically been over 300 watts per mile on average. So overall trip, how things ended up, I was a little off in my initial estimate. We did 6,032 miles, consumed almost 1.6 megawatts of energy, and averaged 263 watt hours per mile on the entire trip. Needless to say, that was one epic road trip across Canada, and hopefully you enjoyed your time watching me do it. And if you did, I'd appreciate you hitting that like button. And if you're new to the channel and you want to see videos like this, please consider subscribing. And if this video inspired you to buy a Tesla of your own, make sure you use a referral link to save cash on that purchase. Use any referral link, but if you want to use mine, there's one in the description below. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you on the next video.